Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
And glad to have with us this morning on our live line, Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray. Chief, thank you for calling in.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
The first question, the most obvious one would be on the Schulteis homicide case. I know that, not to say that your hands are tied, but, with the evidence gathering and the whole process going on between the Hornell Police Department, the different agencies, and the District Attorney's Office, you might be limited in what you can say on the case. What can you tell us now, Chief?
Well, probably not a whole lot more than what I have, Brian. As you correctly cited, there's evidence that's still being gathered, and the District Attorney's Office is still working on the case. Certainly, our hearts go off to the Sprague family for their loss. We talked to a lot of their family members, and they speak so highly of their. In most cases, I've talked to his siblings, and most of the brothers and sisters talk so highly of him, and it was a great loss for him. And a facility like that, it's a very vulnerable community, and we're very saddened to see something like this happen in our community. And we generally don't have anything like this happen in Hornell, but unfortunately, this did take place.
Now, I don't want to press on this. The question I've heard the most from different people is the why this happened. Is there anything you can say on that, Chief, or you're not allowed to say that yet at this point in the investigation?
Yeah, really, I can't comment on that particular.
Understood, Chief. Understood. We're talking with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray. Chief, the Steuben County Sheriff's Department has a case in the news today of a suspect refusing to be fingerprinted. Now, in previous Newsmaker shows when we had him on as a guest, Alfred Police Chief Paul Griffith has talked about their police department in Alfred having problems with the youth in terms of the youth believing it's unconstitutional for police to fingerprint or ask for things like a driver's license just in a pullover. Wondering, how common is that in Hornell?
Well, it's very uncommon. I don't really remember a single case that we've had where we've had that situation arise. There are some people that we've dealt with in the past, but nothing recent that felt that they were immune to having a license in New York State. But
yeah, that may be particular to the fact that Alfred is a college town, not to obviously blame the schools there, but you have a lot of out-of-towners coming in and maybe some different attitudes with that. The meth situation in Hornell, what can you tell us there, Chief? Is that the most common drug that you're seeing these days, methamphetamines?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, this morning at our officers, we got 5 or 6 people locked up from an incident last night involving again methamphetamine. So it is a drug that by far it exceeds anything else that we're seeing at this particular point. And it's a very dangerous drug, obviously, and we'd like to see it off the streets, and we fight every day to try to clean it up.
Talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray, and I know we've talked about this kind of thing before, but the different substances and chemicals that people take sometimes have a common effect. What sort of behavior do you get from the meth influenced suspects, Chief?
They're a little bit. They'll stay up for days on end. It's an upper type drug as opposed to like heroin, which is a downer, puts the person basically to sleep. This has almost the opposite effect. Although, and strangely enough, we do see people that were that had used heroin, and they've gone to using methamphetamine, which it gives it the opposite effect, but it does alter your mind to a degree. So I suppose in that sense, it changes things for them.
Talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray. The other big problem, Chief, and I shouldn't say big problem. I should be careful in the way I phrase that. Of course, it is a big problem when someone gets into it, but the heroin and opioid situation, how common is that these days? And in comparison with the meth situation, which you seem to indicate is the biggest substance that you see in pullovers and arrests these days.
Right. I mean, we're still seeing some opiates, heroin on the street, and we're very cautious because so much of it has fentanyl within it, which is a very deadly substance. But by and large, methamphetamine has kind of taken over the scene by so much. And if there's a positive, I don't know if there is a positive to it, but I suppose we could talk about one of the positives of people not doing heroin is that we're not seeing the number of deaths in people that we've got to revive with our Narcan. So that's gone down with people using the methamphetamine.
Is there an age group that you see, or any common denominators for the people that are using methamphetamines, Chief?
I mean, looking at our arrest statistics, it appears that it's generally an older crowd, usually in their 30s or even into their 40s and 50s. So we're not really seeing it, fortunately, on any consistency with younger people. It's generally people that are late 20s, 30s, even 40s and 50s. Like I say, that's been what we've been seeing with our statistics that I've been looking at.
We hear a lot in the news about drug arrests on 390, the arrest made by the Livingston County Sheriff's Department. Had a couple questions there. I've heard that local law enforcement often works with the different sheriff's department about drug suspects going to and from Rochester or towards the Corning way, maybe into Pennsylvania south of Corning. I had a couple of questions here. One is, when drugs come into Hornell, where are they generally coming from? That's my first question there.
There's a I mean, they come from different locations. I can't pinpoint one. I mean, it used to be that we used to see the majority of our drugs coming from the Rochester area. That's kind of switched a little bit, and we're now seeing them coming a little bit more from the east, the Elmira, Binghamton area, and even down into Pennsylvania coming up into our area. So it has switched a little bit. We used to see everything coming from the larger cities up north, but that's not necessarily true nowadays.
When drugs come into town, Chief, and this would have to be generally speaking, is it usually that the suspected drug dealers go from Hornell to, say, Rochester or to Corning, Elmira, Binghamton area, and then come back, or with the drugs in their vehicles? Or is it more common for you to see out-of-towners coming in to bring the drugs in from Elmira, Corning, or Rochester?
There's usually a mixture of that, Brian. But as we're more effective in making more arrests, I think people from out of town kind of get the idea that it's not a safe place to be bringing drugs into Hornell and selling them in Hornell. So I think we've got that message out there, because we're seeing a lot of people that are into drugs having to go to other areas in order to acquire them, and they may bring some more back, but it's usually just for themselves or for a few other people. So we don't really see, and it could change tomorrow. I could end up hitting a house tomorrow and seeing it differently. But as of our intelligence right now, we're seeing it more that the drugs aren't being held here. They're usually in a larger city area, and people from here are usually going to get them usually.
Talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray live on the Newsmaker show this morning. Remember the old early 1970s movie, The French Connection, and there was a scene in it where Gene Hackman was playing a New York City police officer, and his partner was played by Roy Scheider. It was based on a true story, but they had in the vehicle I forget what the part of the car was called, but they had drugs hidden inside the vehicle, and they had to go to a police garage to unscrew the different panels inside the vehicle. When you have a pullover and it's a bit more than the usual amount, where do you find inside the vehicle that the suspect and suspected drug dealers are keeping the drugs?
A lot of times they're just putting them on their person. That's what we've been finding, a lot of it like that. I've sent some officers to schools so that they know the latest information in regards to where to look in vehicles and such. But for the most part, I think that we're finding drugs basically, secreted on people's person is usually what we're seeing.
And the school resource officer program, and I'm going to get back to drugs in a moment, but you talked about sending the officers into school. Who is the school resource officer at the moment for the Hornell school system?
It's Officer Pete McDaniels from our department.
Okay, and how are things going for Officer McDaniels?
Very good. He enjoys the job, and I'm getting just all sorts of positive feedback from the school district in regards to the job that he is doing there. We're also at this particular point we're just expanding a little bit on it in conjunction with the school district, and we're actually putting a second officer into the school system some days, just to have an extra officer at the high school. Not that there was any issues that we're seeing, but it relieves Officer McDaniels from the high school so they can go to different schools and do different programs.
Do you find that there's less, school fights? Not that there were lots of fights, but is that considerably down? I would think it would be if you knew that there was a police officer upstairs or downstairs or just around the corner in your school. That would kind of keep things a little bit calm.
Yeah, I believe so. I think, and a lot of it when we send our officers in there is for educational purposes too, and to get the kids at the school having a good rapport with our department, and I think that's a very important element of it also.
Talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray, we're going to get back to the topic of the drug situation in the Canisteo Valley area, Hornell area specifically, in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, check the forecast. We'll be right back.
Insurance solicitation by eHealth, a broker offering plans from different insurance companies. No government or Medicare affiliation. This coverage is not available in all counties or cases. Members continue to pay their Part B premium. If you have Medicare, there's something you need to know. There are all-in-one Medicare Advantage plans that may include extra coverage for eyeglasses and dental care. One complete bundle of insurance that includes hospital visits, doctor care, prescription drugs, and may also include eyeglasses and dental care. Some of these plans may have no monthly plan premium. That's right, a $0 plan premium where available. If you have Medicare, learn more online at onecardnow.com. That's onecardnow.com. One card, one company, one complete package of benefits that may include extra coverage for your eyeglasses and dental care. And some of these plans have no monthly plan premium. Visit onecardnow.com. onecardnow.com. That's onecardnow.com.
Checking in now with meteorologist Gary Best, who's got the forecast for us for today. What are we looking at, Gary?
Well, we're looking at some clouds and some scattered flurries out there during today, Brian. This morning sunrise was at 7:01. It'll set this afternoon at 4:50, but we're going to have a lot of clouds out there, limited sun during today. Any flurries end this morning. Temperatures about 40 to 44 during this afternoon. Tonight, back into cold weather, 25 to 30, patchy clouds around. Again, tomorrow, kind of partly sunny to mostly cloudy, maybe an afternoon snow shower right around 40. Then we turn breezy and colder on Friday night, dropping back into the teens by then. Cold start to the weekend, partly sunny, 25 to 30 on Saturday, in the 30s on Sunday, but we may see some light rain by early next week, Brian.
Thank you, meteorologist Gary Best. Well, Chief, seeing as we just did the weather, not to get too off topic, but the weather's effect on crime in a place like Hornell, how does it affect it as it gets colder in the winter months? Do you see a lot less arrests?
We generally do, yes. I think that the arrests do go down a little bit, but it's hard to predict, to tell you the truth. I've seen it in the past also where it gets really cold out and all of a sudden people are living with each other a little bit more closely, and we end up with arrest in that regard. So it's hard to really judge. Our V&T traffic goes down a little bit, so V&T obviously goes down somewhat.
The vehicle and traffic arrests, yeah, that would make sense. Talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray, the whole idea of community policing. Can you tell us, the kinds of things that Hornell Police does with local citizens, and in particular the youth these days?
Yeah, we try to stay involved with the youth, and like I say, having that extra officer at the school is part of that. Our officers are also involved in concern for youth and different activities throughout the community. We try to stay involved in that. And we do, of course, in the nicer weather, we do have our bicycle patrol, which is a really nice community activity that we try to put out there as often as we possibly can.
Back to the topic of drugs, which we got on to in the first segment. Guessing that a lot of the EMT type work that Hornell Police do would be related to drug arrests?
Yeah, I mean, we do carry Narcan with us, and we deploy it in situations where we see overdoses, particularly with the fentanyl that's out there. And our officers are all trained in it and carry it with them.
Does it ever happen that when you get called to a drug arrest that you might say to the guys next door at the fire department, hey, we've got complaints, a call came in on 911, we've been dispatched to go over to a drug arrest. We don't know yet if there's an overdose situation, but there might be. Would you come along? Does that happen a lot, Chief?
Well, yeah, anytime we have a situation where we think that there's going to be a need for medical, they will often set up in an area close to where we're at, and not necessarily come on the scene, but be right there in case we need them, and they do that with us quite a bit.
Yeah, that would be expected. As the Hornell Police, from what I understand, Hornell Police have some EMT training, and then over at the fire department, you have a number of paramedics. Would that be correct to say, Chief?
Yes, I think just a lot of them. I can't really speak for everybody, but I think most of the members over there are EMTs, yes.
Sure thing. We've been talking with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray. The chief has a meeting to get to soon, so we won't take too much longer. We started out with the Schulteis case there, and the chief is restricted in what he can say on that. Chief, you did mention in segment 1 that you had 5 or 6 people arrested last night in a meth-related incident. Wanted to ask you there, was it a vehicle pullover or an arrest at a house?
It was at a house, and there was a vehicle involved in it. But there was an incident where there was a knife pulled on somebody, and some people were arrested based on that. And as a result of of that arrest, they found quantities of methamphetamine. But we'll have that information later on today to release to the media.
Okay. Well, Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray, I know you have to get going to a meeting, so we'll let you go. I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That was Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray here on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. And we have some interesting guests lined up for next week. We'll be speaking with Assemblyman Joe Giglio, and a week from today we'll be speaking with Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker. Tomorrow, as always, Dr. Robert Heineman on the Newsmaker Show here on AM 1480 WLEA.